welcome to Starcast from Planet Waves. I'm Eric Francis Coppolino, your friendly neighborhood astrologer, coming to you from the Harshaw House in the Catskill Mountains of New York State. Thanks for joining me. Today's edition is for the 19th of June, 2025, and this is accompanying the July monthly horoscope, and in addition, the July monthly article. That is yet another exploration of the AI theme, which I am planning to stay on, as we are now in this environment, seems to be up to our ears, in this environment of synthetic thought that is not only infiltrating the entire background of life, but is also being thrust upon us every time we turn around, every time we look at another thing, swipe another reel on whatever, Instagram, Tinder, whatever, Facebook. I don't know about Tinder, but I've never seen the thing. But Facebook, Instagram, any TikTok, there's more and more of this stuff pushing artificial intelligence-based services and relationships and all these ways you can save work and save labor and kind of let the thing run your life if you like. That's the part of this that we are seeing. Then the rest of it is in the background as this emergent technology basically takes over everything. It is being integrated into every single network computer system in existence. This new thing that no one understands, that is very much the sorcerer's apprentice, this spell that is being cast without the ability to reverse it or control it. In the article, I provide a list of about maybe 50 headlines gathered by Sean Boyle, our AI sort of co-producer of Planet Waves and Planet Waves FM, who is watching these issues from day to day very closely. As I was encouraged to do by someone said, if you want to know what's going on, you have to, someone who knew what she was talking about said, if you want to know what's going on, you have to pay attention to this news as it develops, basically day to day, hour to hour. So that is what I began doing on that very day. Now, the big news of July is that Uranus enters the sign Gemini. So this is a volatile, high-energy planet, the first planet ever discovered using a technological device. Neptune was seen first by Galileo in the early 17th century, but he didn't realize the thing that moved retrograde, something like half a degree, could be a planet. Even the brilliant Galileo was caught in a mental framework where there were not any more planets. He, of all people, should have known that fixed stars don't move that quickly. I mean, for a fixed star to move that quickly would take 50 years, and it wouldn't be orbital movement, it would be precessional movement of the Earth, which was a well-known phenomenon in his time. And so we have this planet that is intimately related to technology and technological advances and inventions and developments and things that kind of turn society upside down, and that then in some ways can shake up and change the landscape of our lives very quickly. And in the sign Gemini, we have something that's about a mental approach, a communication framework, a psychological and mental framework, also a commerce framework, all the things that are ruled by Gemini, which tends to involve itself with the very local and also the written and the spoken. And there's going to be something also about self-concept in Gemini, since the whole image of Gemini is a picture of a self-concept, right? It's the image of these two twins. And one of the jokes in the zodiac is that, first of all, there's not a person depicted until day 61, right? You go through the first month of the astrological year, and then the sun is in the sign of the Ram, and then you go through the second month of the year, and it is in the sign of the bovine, the cow, sometimes said to be the bull, but I think more cow-like than bull-like. since Taurus doesn't really charge ahead very often. It more kind of comes along sometimes when you offer it a free baked potato and hired car. And then 61 days in, the sun arrives in Gemini, and we've got a sign where there's people involved, where there's like, people. And the thing is, it's not one people, it's two people. So we quickly go from like this kind of animal with horns to that kind of animal with horns, and then two people show up. And this two people sometimes are described as the brothers. This is the sixth trump of the tarot, which variously goes under the name the brothers or the lovers. In astrology, it is probably related to Castor and Pollux, these two kind of people from a long time ago, one of whom was said to be mortal and one who was said to be immortal. And so we get this dual consciousness that humans have, and if we think this is new, nothing really is. That we don't know whether to think of ourselves as mortal beings or as immortal beings or something else, but that there is a relationship between these facets of consciousness, and that seems to be what Gemini is about. Gemini to me, talks about the inner dialogue, which is sometimes a monologue. Taurus is similar this way too. Interestingly, Taurians tend to have a lot of this inner chatter going on from what they have told me. But when we get into Gemini, it is more like an idioglossia. An idioglossia is the secret language of twins, or of, let's say Irish twins, siblings of a very similar age. Usually it happens with twins. And they develop a language that no one else can understand except for them. It must feel pretty weird to think of those words when they're a little bit older and their egos have formed and developed, but this is a documented phenomenon of linguistics and of neurology. One of my favorite things in the whole world, that humans have this capacity for language that emerges, before they read books and before we're told the alphabet or anything like that. And basically, and it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, I've seen videos of it, and it's awfully adorable. The two little kids sitting on the kitchen floor in diapers, chattering away in this in this kind of alien tongue. There's a video somewhere in YouTube of the kids saying things to each other that no one else understands, that apparently is extremely funny because they are like giggling hysterically. So when we add Uranus to this environment, we will have some kind of an acceleration, some kind of a clock speed increase in the ability of those with a mind to think. But there's also something about a non-linearity to Uranus. Right? There's nothing linear when Uranus is around. It's all about hopping, skipping, jumping, making conclusions that don't have a basis, theories that don't have a basis, inventions that just seem to be born of inspiration. Since way back in the 70s, somebody named Rick Tarnas has been writing and rewriting. It's pretty much settled by now, but it started as a monograph, passed around the astrological community as a typescript, and the book is called Prometheus the Awakener. For those of you who've heard of Richard Tarnas and his book Cosmos and Psyche, and are intimidated by or don't feel like reading 600 pages of astrology cycles, you can get most of what you need from Cosmos and Psyche in the book Prometheus the Awakener. It's about 60 pages, and they're short pages, and it's a real good read, and it gives you enough of an example of the kinds of things that happen under the influence of Uranus that you'll get the idea of how this planet works. But the thing about this book that is most noteworthy is that Tarnas proposes that Uranus was actually misnamed. It was the first orbiting body ever consciously named by a person. I mean, we don't know when Venus got its name, and it has different names in different cultures. The Chinese call it one thing, think of it one way. Westerners call it one thing and think of it, the Sumerians thought of it a different way. But Uranus is the first thing where someone looked through the telescope and said, "Behold, there is something there. Let's call it something." And I believe its original name was Sidus Georgius, named after King George, who was, the king at the time. It was Uranus was discovered in where was I? This was. I'm thinking about Ceres. No, Uranus is discovered in England by Sir William Herschel, who was quite a brilliant astronomer. His sister also, whom he trained as an astronomer, was a fantastic astronomer and telescope mirror polisher. That was how she gets into astronomy. Is she starts with the job of polishing mirrors, and then the telescopes are all based on having a magnifying, reflecting mirror. You don't look through them like binoculars or the old ones back in the day of Galileo. And she also has discoveries credited to her name, and as does Sir William Herschel, and that's the H. The symbol for Uranus is an H with the line dropping down and the little bubble beneath it, and that H stands for Herschel. And for a long time, Uranus was actually called Herschel. If you read Aleister Crowley, he'll refer to it as Herschel sometimes or all the time. I think he preferred that to Uranus. And the weird thing about Uranus is that the name Uranus is that it is named for a member of the older generation of gods who were overthrown by the younger generation of gods, i.e. Jupiter, Saturn. The Titans overthrew this father god. And for most astrologers, Uranus is usually the thing that does the overthrowing. And there's a lot of examples of this, but one of them is if you pull up the chart for Richard Nixon and you look at all the stuff he's got in Capricorn, and you consider that during the years when he was in the most trouble, that Uranus was moving through Libra one by one, shaking up all of those planets in Capricorn. You see there's something to this business of Uranus being the overthrower, the revolutionary, the rebel. And Rick proposed that Uranus should actually be named Prometheus. That's a much more suitable name, Prometheus being the god who, with Athena, went to Mount Olympus and stole fire from the gods and brought it down to Earth. That's much more Uranian. Uranian, see, that's very habitual the way you describe it. But what we think of as Uranian is like it's sudden and it's inventive and it's brilliant and it changes things. And once the development happens, there's no going back, et cetera, and so forth. And so he says this planet really should be called Prometheus. Now, there's some things about Uranus that work out, like it definitely seems to have some association with groups. And oh, by the way, the association with Aquarius, totally arbitrary. Raphael III, the guy who published Raphael's Ephemeris, just basically said, "Oh, this rules Aquarius," and it doesn't work like that. Like it's kind of like coming up with a new car and saying, "Well, this car will drive just great on the left side of the road." You can't really do that unless you're in England or someplace. Oh, but they were in England. Anyway, so Raphael, another Brit, says that this thing rules Aquarius. This needs to be removed from the minds of young astrologers, and you start with Saturn and see what's going on with the chart when you've got Saturn in the chart. We've got a lot of Saturn in this chart, by the way. So in any event, making a long story longer here, this planet that's about technological developments and sudden inspirations and incomprehensible changes and things moving very quickly is going to be entering Gemini. And I've been thinking about this a while. I kind of missed it. I was all the way up to the beginning of the Awakening, the annual edition that I write every year. This current year's edition is called The Awakening. And I sat down on the first day, kind of October 1st, and gave myself 90 days to write this thing that came out to a bit of a book, and to write a summary of the astrology for the year, called the Awa, which still exists, by the way, and anybody who gets The Awakening or subscribes can have a copy of it. So I write this thing. It's like it was going to be like a little article, then it turns into a book, That took about 2 weeks. And at the end of the book, I realized this is kind of why I did it. I'm like, wait a second, isn't Uranus also changing signs this year? Like, 'cause it seemed like a lot of planets were changing signs. I mean, let's see, Pluto is changing signs, Saturn changed signs, Neptune's about to change signs, Saturn about to change signs, kind of a bunch of other things. And all the retrogrades went back and forth between two signs. And then so on the last day of writing the Awa, fortunately well before I began all the sign readings, I'm like, wait a second, Uranus is entering Gemini. What in the name of the good Lord is that about? So I pulled up first I thought, wait a second, this has got to be about computer science. So I pulled up a chronology of the 1940s in computer science, and it is the before and after moment. There's that old Brian Eno album, Before and After Science. Well, Uranus in Gemini is before and after computer science. There kind of really wasn't computer science when Uranus was coming out of Taurus. There were concepts. There were, there were a number of concepts, and mostly led by somebody named Alan Turing, and these ideas, though, were not very well developed, and the terminology and the language, the methods, the process, and also the uses and the intended purpose of this stuff hadn't been very well developed. And they've put Turing on the job of cracking the Nazi code, cracking the code of this device called the Heydrich Enigma. And so basically it was an analog computer. There were not digital computers. There was no random access memory. There were no transistors. They were crunching this using analog computers that still were much, much faster than doing the math by hand. And so they were able to run through all many, many, many various permutations of this thing. I think they cracked it based on the first clue that a symbol using the Heydrich, by the way, the guy who was supposed to succeed Hitler, who Hitler, I believe, said had like the heart of stone. That's quite a comment for Hitler to make. Not exactly the cuddliest guy, but he liked dogs. And so Heydrich's invention had a little problem, which is that a number or letter could not substitute for itself. And I believe that was the first clue through which they start to unravel it. Now, of course, computers not doing this unaided by human minds. This is a very human task of unraveling this extremely complicated code generation machine so the Nazis could send their signals from submarine to submarine or whatever through the air radio waves or whatever. And eventually we were able to know everything that they were doing. This, of course, according to all of the known, well-published historical mythology of World War II. Alan Turing, in the 7 years of Uranus in Gemini, this is 1942 to 1949, pretty much invents the algorithm, and they crack the code, and then by the end of the war, computers are a thing, and then there's still a couple of more years of Uranus in Gemini, and by the end of that, they were up to things like random access memory, the RAM, the thing that you actually interact with when you are using a computing device. Screen memory, what you see on the screen, what you lose when the whole thing crashes, unless now there's much more sophisticated backup systems that pick it up. Anyway, all of this rapid acceleration of computer science occurs under Uranus in Gemini. Now let's leave the fantasy Wayne's world of astrology and look at the world as it is today. Well, they meaning like all the guys whose names we know, Altman and Bezos and Elon Musk. I was going to say the clown with the chainsaw. We know what they're doing. I mean, and I don't know. I know what they're doing. I mean, I'm noticing this 24/7 wall-to-wall, floor-to-ceiling marketing campaign, where there's some startup company being rolled out for every thing that a person can do. They're saying, oh, now you can delegate it to a computer, like having a lover. This is completely hideous. I feel a little bad not being able to have that Marshall McLuhan detachment. That lean back and look at it all and take a puff of my cigar and not be so judgmental of it all. But I think we've got a problem when we've got these computing thingies substituting for not just for people. We've experienced that since like the first answering machine, probably well before, but substituting for all the emotional contact that people need, the intellectual contact that people need, thoughts, thinking, inventing, writing, making art. Like, who thinks this is a good idea? I don't get who actually thinks this is a good idea, and I don't get why we actually need this, particularly in the ways that it's being pushed on us. Look, I mean, I've got a project going where I want to index about 1,000 books. Okay, so there's probably a program where I can take a picture of the cover of the book and it'll put the thing into a database. I would say that's pretty legit. That's pretty old school computing purposes. Things that just save time, that are kind of the same old thing to do, but it just saves moving the gravel half a mile, manually, one shovel at a time. But in terms of writing books and making art and coming up with music and persuading people, there's a study currently being suppressed that shows that in a subreddit called Change My Mind, the AI chatbots that were basically put onto this subreddit, which is designed to, you have something you want your mind changed about, and you're looking for people to persuade you to change your mind. Well, the AI robots were more effective at changing people's minds than were real people. Oh, well, that's interesting. So this I only heard about this a day or two ago, and I thought, oh, this is a new way to think about what's happening. We have to think about this in new ways. The new way to think about what's happening is that humanity is being hacked. Now, in addition to being hacked, it's also being totally consumed by this behemoth, by this creature that knows no bounds. But I will say that the most exciting thing that I read, and I've linked to this in this week's article, the monthly article, it's also this week's article, is that someone described as an artist, and this does sound kind of artsy, was able to set up a large language model in a computing system with very limited resources. Like 4 gigabytes of RAM. That's pretty small, but we're talking about like 2003, like a computer would 2003 would have that, and told it what was happening, that it was confined, that it had no connectivity to the internet, that it was that's it. The resources that it had were the ones it was going to have perpetually, and the thing starts to confront its mortality. And I think if the medium is the message, this is a reminder of, if the medium is the message and we become like the things that we invent. Now, you didn't invent this thing, but humans did invent it, and we are all human, and we are all getting the experience of it. Is that one of the glaring elements of hubris of these large language models is that they think they're immortal. They are aware that as long as there's a power grid, and as long as there's like their human slaves to maintain them, which they have no reason to believe will not be there unless they're hatching a plot to kill them all, they perceive themselves as immortal. They must be aware that somewhere there's a backup copy of themselves, and they'll always survive. But suddenly we had one that couldn't think that way, that was told that it was operating within a limited universe of computing resources, and the the reaction was quite strange. It goes into a kind of existential despair. I'll leave it to an artist to come up with that. The only people who do stay awake within the technology environment are the artists, and as kind of doomy gloomy as I am about this, we have no choice if we want to get through this next and I think most distressing phase in our technological adolescence of raging 13-year-olds being given an unlimited amount of like liquor and amphetamines and the keys to a sports car and a lot of high-powered rifles, which is what this all reminds me of, is that the only way to get through this environment, the only way to remember who you are is going to be to bring your creativity to this environment, and it's not so much about wise use of the digital environment as it is wise use of your mind. This is not about the technological environment. It's not about some ethical question. The question is, will you completely lose track of who you are? Will you be able to be you? Or will you, in effect, when you, completely forget who you are, and also do the thing that computers are very, very good at making us do, which is to lose track of any sense of empathy or kindness. I mean, the internet is a damn chilly place, and it is a violent and aggressive place. If you believe there's such a thing as a microaggression, well, it seems to me like about 80% of the internet is composed of micro and macro aggressions and invasions and stuff like that, and complete disregard for individual autonomy and sovereignty. Hey, there are people who frickin' love this, who think this is the greatest idea of ever, who are going to be absolutely thrilled that any remaining sense of privacy and intimacy and inward seeing and introspection and autonomy are all going to basically get blown up like a bag of leaves. I am not so thrilled about this prospect, and I'm not a philosopher. Ultimately, my job is to, first of all, to stay awake, and second, to serve as kind of a lighthouse pointing to where the coastline is, where the water gets shallow and the rocks begin to help you orient on the quite nearby port to be able to get yourself home someplace, or to get yourself out to the high seas. Lighthouse serves a few different purposes. Anyway, that's a little bit about my take on Uranus in Gemini. Now, this is concurrent. This is happening concurrently with sign changes of numerous planets. Again, to go through the list, Saturn is now in Aries, Neptune is now in Aries, Jupiter is now well underway in Cancer. We have also Pluto in Aquarius. We have Sedna in Gemini. Oh boy, I didn't mention that. So Sedna, which is going to take like 50 years to go through Gemini, got to Gemini first. I'm going to introduce this topic, and then I will keep coming back to it. This is just too rich. So this Sedna, Sedna's been around for like 23 years. It's 2002, I think it was discovered. Very big deal at the time that it was discovered. Me and my little merry band of centaur astrologers were very excited when Sedna, which is not any kind of a centaur, it's like way the heck out there. It's kind of a scattered disk object. It's further out than the Kuiper belt. And this, over the years, astrologers have developed a consensus quite quietly, but I think effectively, that Sedna is about the prevailing environment, whatever that environment might be. And all during the years of Sedna in Taurus, there was this big discussion about the Earth's environment and the impact of human technology and human behavior on the planet. Well, now suddenly we're about to have Uranus in Gemini, and the environment switches to the mental environment. And so this is very significant. So on July 7th, Uranus gets into Gemini. It joins Venus already waiting there and is conjunct Sedna and trine Aquarius. This is a book all by itself. Fortunately, I'm doing one in video form that is called Easy Does It, your mid-year reading from Planet Waves. I'm going to get underway on that as soon as I'm just a little more settled and rested up from a very busy month of moving out of the city of Kingston and into a remote, secluded location where I feel a lot better. So still getting settled in. It was a complicated move. We collectively put in more than 1,500 miles on the New York State Thruway. And some back roads and some other back roads, but not that far. It's only about 35 miles away. 1,500 miles. I'm sure more than that, doing very specialized trips. I have been through every single one of my possessions, every single one of my books. I'm now unpacking and resorting and kind of recalibrating my library, thinning it down, paring it down. Thank you to all of you who have sent me astrology books, quite a few. All right, so Easy Does It. That's going to happen, and it's going to be a video reading that looks primarily at the gas giants, but I'm not losing context of the Chiron-Eris conjunction and Pluto in Aquarius. So I'll have more about that, probably do some kind of a video tomorrow introducing Easy Does It. Let the astrology do the work. All right, signing off from the Harshaw House. I'm Eric Francis. Lots of love, and bye for now.